Hey! Happy Sunday all. Let's have a look. Let's turn it a bit down. That's better. Doo-doo. How are we all doing this beautiful Sunday? All right. Just gonna collect some of the questions in the background. Shouldn't be too long. Hey Y3, hey Cairo, hey Leon. How's it all going? Oh, it's a beautiful day today. Kind of a mixed bag at the moment because it's nice and sunny, but I don't want the snow to go away. So, it's gonna happen soon enough. But it sucks though. I don't want the snow to go away. AMA questions. Okay, seems like we got 3 from the community. That's awesome. And then Cairo, Pam. Hey Ryan, how's it going? All the way from the USA. I keep forgetting, like I feel like I ask this every time, but what time is it over there? I do ask that every time, right? I need, you know what I need? I need one of those like world clocks, like a couple of clocks just on the wall somewhere, so I always know who's watching at a ridiculous time. Hey Pam, how's it going? Oh, it's 4, so it's not bad. Yeah, all right. Not too bad. You're crazy, man. Crazy. Yeah, so it's 1 here, right? So yeah, I'm like 9 hours ahead. It's like a spot in the middle. Almost forgot about this. How are you doing, Pam? How is it going? Let's see if we have any anonymous questions. Nope, nothing in there. Cool. All right. Let's give it a few more minutes for people to come and join us. Not too bad, but I'm rendering on the rendering queue. It takes ages, and my artwork is not so high quality for the render. It'll have nice cinematics. What piece is this for? Is this for the underwater scene? The table. Yeah. Awesome. Hey Derek, how's it going? Oh, that's gonna be good though. It's gonna be good. It's gonna have nice cinematics. Are you doing like one fly through or like multiple shots? Waiting on the stream to start. All right. 2 shots, one left to side and one zoom in. Yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to the end result of that. Yeah. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be awesome. I think we got some pretty cool topics for today that we're gonna discuss with everyone. I think most of it is gonna be about the art tests, the art test side of things, and what we think about that, and then we'll move on to like some opinions about people who go trending and use, I don't know, for like in an artist's eye, like use weird ways to get there. Alright, but let's just dive into it. Got a couple more people showing up. That's good. So, the first question is from Cairo. So, what do you think of the practice of art tests? I personally think that they can be detrimental for new artists, especially trying to break into the industry, having to do unpaid work, sometimes a few art tests in a very short space of time, and while they are doing art tests, it can be difficult to find the time to work which can pay the bills in the meantime. Interested in other opinions about this? Yeah, feel free to pitch in the chat. Like, what do you think about artists? And if they can be detrimental to, like, new people? I mean, it's a good topic, right? We had a discussion in the voice chat in the Discord channel as well. But it's such a tricky one. I feel that most of the time art tests don't really test for the things that the company needs to test them for, right? So they feel like this grand overarching thing, even though you have a portfolio that you've built up over the last couple of years that should give you the same kind of information, just on a different time span. But you're not gonna make, as an environment artist, right? If we're talking about that, you're not gonna make like a full environment that's gonna be on the same level of quality in like 2 weeks anyway. So we were kind of talking about the idea of, if you have a person coming in as like a junior, or like trying to get in as a junior, and you see that they have certain skills, like for example, they know how to bake high to low poly, they know how to create assets, but then you're not really sure if they can set up a scene and if they can set dress a scene in a way to become like a level artist too, right? Why don't we just test them on that? Just specifically on that topic, instead of like the whole environment creation. Like, we already know that they can create good looking props. We already know that they know the pipeline for that. There's obviously going to be some adjustments for a professional workspace, right? Different kinds of programs, different kinds of workflows, but usually if you have the base already covered, then you should be good. To me personally, it just doesn't make sense for like a two week or like 3 week in some cases. Like I would say that that's the extreme of it, where you have to prove that you can do a full environment, even though in my case my portfolio was full of them, right? I'm not saying that I had like an art test in the beginning, because I didn't. right? So I kind of showed off the skills that were necessary for that job, and also the industry wasn't as competitive as we're talking about it now, so that's also um a different aspect of it. Regardless of their work on their portfolio, isn't it nice to see their technical approach? But are you getting any extra information out of them? Oh, material art, tech art, etc. Yeah, for sure. But what extra are you getting from them showing it compared to during the interview? Because most of that stuff is discussed during the interview, right? So hopefully if you put good questions forward during the interview, you kind of know some of that stuff already. I'm saying some of that stuff, right? Because you can kind of get from an interview that they work efficiently, but there's some other stuff that you mentioned, like material art, tech art, that needs to be shown, right? So if they don't have that on their portfolio, for example, then you kind of need to do an art test for that, right? Because you kind of want to see that side of it too. So it's a good point though, because I think it's valid though. Like you do want to see their technical approach to stuff, right? You do want to know that, but it's not only on their side to show it off. It's, well, for a portfolio case it is, right? But it's also for you to bring up the questions that lead you to the answer that you're looking for. So say you're looking for you kind of, during the interview, you get the feeling that the person is not technically inclined or doesn't know about the technical stuff, right? So, but it's up to you to bring those questions forward and like really dig into that side of things. And then if you still think that at the end of the interview that there needs to be like some further investigation or like some additional stuff to prove it, that they're really solid on that side of things, that's where like an art test comes in. But it's two things, right? We discussed this on the voice channel as well, the To Be On Extend voice channel, where we were kind of going around this same kind of topic right now, that it also takes a lot of time for the artists to come up with different art tests where they're also doing production, right? They're also doing all this additional stuff. So setting up an art test, in most cases, if it's up to the artists, and they always should be involved, right? Especially if we're talking about environment art in this case, it's gonna take time from them too. And imagine if you have to set up an art test for set dressing, an art test for material art, an art test for this. It's gonna take them a lot of time to set that all up too. So I get why some companies go for a more generic approach, right? Because it's kind of easier to have this test that they can apply to like a lot of people, and then also compare the results of them, and then pick out the best candidate, because that's also a part of it, right? You want to be able to compare the results, whereas if you have separate art tests, for example, there's no way that you can compare a set dressing art test to a material art test, for example. There are some things like artistic insight, like the choices that they made, maybe you can kind of put them against each other, but it's still comparing different stuff. I'll get to your question, like your addition next, Leon. I just want to see what Cairo has to say about this. Your opinion seems to be the majority from what I've heard, so I wonder why they're still as prevalent as they are. Is it the higher ups? No, I think it's just not enough focus on it. Because I myself was involved with the artist for our studio, for example, but then production just got in the way. Well, quote unquote in the way. Like we had to shift our focus to production again. So we didn't really have the time to spend on art tests. Yeah, but I do think in general you need an art test though. Art tests are never gonna go away, I think, because it is a good tool to just test the weak points or the stuff that's missing from people that you want to hire. It's a good way to test like the missing skills that you want to have for your company. Your art test isn't bad from what you explained to me. Yeah, but I see that's the thing, right? Like I was disconnected from like I mentioned before, I wasn't really involved with that process anymore. So I don't know if we actually implemented it at the end. I think we still use like a more generic approach to it, where it's kind of like finding a balance between the generic approach and then testing specific stuff, right? Yeah, that's a good question actually. I need to follow up on that. So test them for what you think might be their weak spot, or test them for what you want to use them for in the end. Example, a level artist would be set dressing. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's also what's happening in most cases, right? You're not gonna test a material artist for set dressing. I mean, that would be ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, there's so many aspects to this too, right? Derek is just cringing. But yeah, it is true, right? You kind of want to see where their bad spots are, and then if you're really worried about that, then you send them a test specifically to test that. Because it's kind of weird, right? Like if you spend like 4 years working on your portfolio, for example, you have multiple pieces that sort of show growth, that show your potential, that show your artistic insight too. Why would you put them in front of like another test? It's gonna test them for the same things again, just to make doubly sure that that they're a good fit. And in most cases, this is also something that we brought up. In most cases, that's also why you have what is it called again? Like a probation period, right? A period where you can properly test the person that they're living up to the expectations that you want to hold them to as like a junior environment artist in this case. And if they don't, and I've seen not a lot of people not make it through like their probation period. But yeah, I mean, that's why the probation period is there, right? It gives them the option to just discontinue the contract if they don't need it. Well, it's one of the uses for that. Could be it. Yeah, I can get behind targeted art tests, although I understand that they're too time consuming to implement in most cases. Yeah, but I don't think that's really an excuse, is it, right? Like, I made it sound like an excuse, but if you're really honest about, or if you're really purposeful about like getting the best artists on your team, then stuff like that should be implementable. Like the people involved should be given the time to really think about it. It shouldn't be like a side thing that people are just like occasionally thinking about. It should be the main focus for a couple of people that are like really that probably have like high seniority and are like heavily involved with in the recruitment process, just to give them the time to come up with like a really good test. And I know that we're generalizing here, right? I truly believe that there might be some good art tests out there, but then we're also running into the quote-unquote issue that most of them are under NDA, right? So you don't see them with good reason, because if they get shared, then other people can start preparing for them, right? and it kind of skews the results that you're gonna get from those artists. And that's also where the weird part comes in with all these artists that you see from Star Citizen, for example, right? Because people know what they need to do for the artist. So if they get the opportunity to apply for Star Citizen, or like for the company, and they get the artist, they could technically already have 90% of the artist done by the time that they get it. You always run the risk of it changing, right? So you need to keep that in mind. But I mean, it's been going on for like a couple of years, so I can't see. There must be some results that are skewed, or that people have started working on before they actually got the artist itself. I think we also brought up the fact that it also depends on how it's handled. For example, when I spent 2 weeks on mine, I didn't even get an automatic rejection, and I felt really bad. Felt it wouldn't be as jaded if I just said something. Yeah, if they just said something, yeah. Yeah, that's like another factor of it, right? Where most of the times you just get ghosted, which, I mean, it's just an inappropriate response, right? If you're really interested in getting the best people out there to join your company, and you got to this point of an artist, which is already, I don't know, let's say a couple of percentages from like the entire batch that you got in, right? So say you get 1,000 people in, and then you know that you only have say 4 positions open at this time, then you know that you're not gonna send like 500 people in like an artist. That's just illogical. So you already pick from the people that you kind of interested in, and then give them an artist if they need it, right? But yeah, that is so weird. Like if you let them do like a 2-week artist and then not send them like even a reply to it, like even an automated, I mean, it just sucks. You would expect a little bit more involvement in the process. Because yeah, I mean, that just sucks. Like if you get a reply, like an automated response, or like if you just get ghosted like in the first interview, it almost doesn't really matter, right? Because then you know where you stand, and it's like, okay, like there's no interest from the other party, so you just move on. Whereas if you get an artist and then get nothing behind it, it's like, wait, I thought you were interested, and now we're here at this like empty space and nothing's happening. So yeah, it's definitely weird. But it's a really good topic that you brought up. Let's go back to your question, Caro, as well. Having to do unpaid work is also like a big topic, right? And I don't know who brought it up. Maybe it's you, Ryan, that brought it up. That if they were to do paid artists, there would be a way bigger focus on making it a good artist. Because then the company's actually thinking about the expenses that go into like doing artists for people, right? So there's going to be like an optimization that comes with that. Or stop doing it. That is, yeah. I get where that is coming from, right? That sentiment. But there's a lot of people that don't have the option to. Like they really want to get into the industry. Is that what you're talking about, Derek? Just like stop doing artists. Unless they're paid. Because I think that's also part of the issue, right? There's so many people trying to get in that if you don't do it, it needs to be kind of like a collective decision. Like, say if you don't do it, then another person's just gonna fill in. Like, it's not gonna matter. The only thing that's changed is that you don't have a job, or like a potential for a job. Does an artist usually come before or after an interview? So in general, it might differ from company to company, right? In general, you have a first interview, and then they kind of see where you stand artistically, and then they send you an artist if they want to test you on some specifics. So yeah, sometimes it can happen before, but I would say it's weird that it happens before, although it can happen. Because yeah, I feel that if you send someone an artist, at least have the conversation first, because then you know what you're testing them for. Because you can get a lot of information out of a portfolio, right? That's true. But like Derek brought up before, you don't know the technical thinking behind it. You don't know their reasoning why they did it. They might have some really interesting reasons of why they approached it in this way, and what kind of tools that they use, and how they automated the process, or whatever, right? You need to have that conversation, or else you're never gonna find out. Because the portfolio is just a display of the beautiful end result, unless you have like a really elaborate breakdown included in it. But the end result, that's the thing that takes your attention. And usually you don't know like the couple months struggle to get to that end result. And that's why we have interviews. Create blogs and show breakdowns though would help to avoid doing art tests. Yeah, that could be an interesting approach. I wonder, say if that is like a standardized way of doing it, right? Like say as a student trying to get into the industry, you kind of need to have a blog to show breakdowns and do all that stuff. Maybe that might impact the interview process. But then it's also going to lengthen the interview process, right? Because then you have to read through the blogs, you kind of have to go through it, you have to take the time to do it. And I wonder how many times that happens. But it's a good one though. I mean, all the additional information that you put up there, like a blog or a breakdown, is definitely going to help. Blog posts showcase speed and technical approaches to some extent. Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely a big fan of that. I mean, yeah. I was doing breakdown blogs of my work for like the first couple of years, right? So I'm definitely a big fan of that. For sure. It would be interesting to ask people how much that decided their decision making. Because I think it's definitely like a good way to showcase like all the work that you're putting into it, right? I have the understanding that companies don't look at blogs. I've definitely, when I was involved in the interview process, I've definitely looked at blogs, because when I was doing interviews, I'm really specific about timings. So if someone is not posting for like a couple of months to like a couple of years, right? Like say there's like a couple of years in between like two projects in the portfolio, I start looking for what happened in between. And then most of the time I stumble upon those blogs, and then you can see that they're like trying out new stuff, they're experimenting with like new workflows, but it isn't leading up to like a portfolio example, right? Because I do think that the people that are involved with the interviewing, if we're talking about artists doing artist interviews, then, and if they're really involved in it, I would expect that they're at least go through the trouble of like reading more about people that they're interested in. It might not be about everyone, but say they have like a couple of candidates that they're really interested in, they will probably read all about it. So, and a blog is just another space, right? I personally would be really interested in reading a blog and going through it and seeing how it develops over time. But I mean, obviously I might be a bit biased towards it too, right? I have no screenshots in my blog, but I still write out how I do things. In that case, my blog is pretty useless. I make it for me. Yeah, I think that's fair. I would still add some screenshots to it though. Because even... it doesn't have to ruin the flow, right? It can just be like raw screenshots. You don't need to make it pretty. That's what a blog is for. Just take like a high resolution screenshot from Unreal Engine and put it on there. Done. I mean, that's literally what I did with my blogs in the beginning. Because like you said, I didn't want to spend like a ton of time spending on like, oh, I need to put it in this template and then have like a nice border around it and then save it out again and then put it on there. No, it's just like just raw images. People want to see that. Have in mind that most of the time people don't read. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also, if you're doing it for yourself, it's super fun to look back at older blogs and then go through the pictures too. It's super fun to do that. I've definitely done that a couple of times with my blogs. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at some of these chat questions. Did we already talk about this one? From Cairo? Are companies normally sympathetic to the fact that some people might only be able to do art tests in the evenings after work? Yep. Most of them are. If you just bring that up, that you're working full time, you can work something out. I've done a couple of art tests where I mentioned that, like I'm fully employed. Like if I want to do an art test, it has to be spread out over the evenings. So they kind of give you like a week or something, right? With that in mind. So that you're only able to work on it in the evenings. Let's have a look. Because there's also, from Mohammed, we have like an additional question that builds on top of this question too. What do you think about the lengthy recruitment process? I'm talking about AAA studios that can spend 3 months to recruit an artist. 3 months. I've seen it myself, and usually they only shoot themselves in the foot, because if they really want to get the best artist out there and they're really interested in your portfolio, they know that you're gonna be picked up by another studio soon. So if they're really honest about that and really want you there, then it's gonna be quicker than 3 months. There's obviously human error that comes into it, right? If you have a recruitment manager that is just like swamped with recruitments coming in, that can happen. If you have people getting sick, people going on holidays, all that stuff can happen as well. I mean, that's not gonna take like a couple of months unless they saved up all their holidays and just spend it in one time. That would be unfortunate timing. But yeah, 3 months is definitely way too long. It needs to be quicker than that. I know that there's like a bunch of hierarchical stuff that comes into it, right? Because it's like multiple layers that need to poke each other and like, hey, do you have an update on this? Like, do we have an update on maybe, I don't know, maybe the company budget, or maybe the timeline of the project to see if they are a good fit within the timeline of this project, or Yeah, there's so many factors that go into it. So it's not a simple yes and no behind the scenes, right? There's like a lot of different factors that come into it. But 3 months is definitely too long. It can take like a couple of weeks though. But once we're at the three months mark, yeah, that's way too long. That is a way too long. Let's have a look through the chat, right? Because we're still going on these blogs. I'm a manic with my blogs. I edit all the photos before I put it. Well, yeah, I get why, right? I get why, because you kind of want it to be, it's a part of your brand, right? A part of your artistic brand that you're kind of showing to the outside world, where it's a part of you. So you kind of wanted to show off the best side of it instead of just dumping it on there. But then it becomes a question of like, say in my case, right? If you look at the weekly blogs that I do, which have moved away over time from me sharing the process, which is actually something that I kind of want to go back to. I want to share more of my progress again. But it's just a time question. It's just about, I'm already doing like the weekly tip, which takes me an hour or like something, right? Because there's like topic planning and like where do I put it in, where, like how do I condense it in a way that makes sense for people. And if you start thinking about just the time spent on those different things, then it can easily be like a couple of hours before you get like a blog post out. Whereas a blog post in its essential form, if you're just recording your work in progress, should be like something really quick. Like at the end of the day, I'm just like, oh, I feel really good about this day. Just put a couple of photos in there and just write something up really quick. And that's also how it started, right? That's also how I started with doing blogs. It was just like, oh, I discovered this new thing, or I worked on this interesting topic. But yeah, I get why that you want to make it nice. Still paying and time consuming. Exactly. Jacob, hey man, how's it going? I applied to somewhere in November and didn't get a reply to February. Yeah. I had the same thing where in my when I was trying to break into the industry, right? I sent out like a bunch of applications and I passed my probation at Frontier Development. Or like I got through my internship, which is 6 months. And then I got a reply from another studio saying that, oh, they would be interested in talking about my internship. I've already finished it at that point. Like sometimes these timelines, they don't make sense. I usually get a rejection in a week or two, and if not, then it's a ghost. Yeah. Oh, Ryan, you might be getting some surprise in like a couple of months from like companies that find out that they never reply to you or something. Just like, oh, hey, remember when we talked like a couple of months ago? It is crazy, yeah. But again, there's so many factors to it, right? Because we're talking about like individual processes. Like usually, I'm generalizing again, right? So usually this is not a systematic thing. Where if you say for my case, I got a reply for like 6 months after, right? Usually that doesn't happen. But my perception now from that company is that it's always going to happen like that. So you need to be careful with that. Also, as a tip, 2 weeks and send an email. Then wait another 2 weeks, send another email. And then if they don't reply to that one, just give it up. And also, in addition to that, don't wait for that one company. Just keep sending out applications. Don't ever wait for that one company to get back to you and then move on to the next one. Just send out emails. And then if you get a reply, right? If you get a reply from a company that's interested in you and you're already going through like an application with another company, that's a bargaining chip that you can use. If you want to, right? You can bring that up. And then at least you have a choice between two companies instead of just the one. And then you can compare and take your time. All right. This is a good discussion. I love this. 45 minutes already. Chase. However, we got one more question from our lovely Pam that is asking, what do you think about people who are getting trending, quote unquote famous, and writing articles on top 3D websites by building worlds with megascans and quixel assets? I think, honestly, getting a bit jealous. And I speak from experience, right? I've went through the same thing where it's like, oh my god, these people are just doing like the easy thing and they're getting recognized for it, while I'm building like my own environments and it takes me like a couple of months and I don't get the recognition that they get. That's just how it is. Do you, like, people in the chat, do you get that same feeling sometimes when you just look at those people and there's like this initial reaction of like, oh my god? I think in most cases it's just jealousy. Because at the end of the day, it's still art, right? It's still a finished environment. And it's what the industry is kind of working towards too. Especially if you're looking at the realistic side of things, right? That's where the I feel bad for getting trending with one material. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? That's the thing. You can do, look, quote unquote simple stuff, right? Comparatively, if we're looking at just the time spent to it, right? Because making a good material isn't simple by itself. But it's just like, it's also a trend, right? Like, I remember when the first people were doing like substance designers and they had like the material spheres, like that became a trend and people start following that trend because that's where you get like a lot of attention. People, it was very satisfying to see that stuff if done well. So yeah, I don't, most of it is just because like, look at what they have and what I don't have most of the time. But it's, I mean, do you want to be you or do you want to follow trends? That's always a question that I ask myself. And that really helped me get over this feeling of like, oh my god, look at their work, it's so much better than mine and I want to do something like that. No, because then you're always going to be like a second grade on whatever the artist is, right? You just got to focus on the stuff that you want to do. And if that is, in this case, like Derek mentioned, like materials, that's 100% fine. But I would say if you're just chasing materials for the amount of likes or whatever you wanna get out of it, right? For the perceived value of just getting more likes of it, then you're doing something wrong, in my opinion. You just need to keep following your own stuff that you want to do. And it takes, you might dabble in like a lot of stuff in between, right? But don't let those likes or that attention be the benchmark that you work towards. Listen to yourself. Listen to what you want to do, how good you feel about it, how interested you are in the stuff that you're doing. Because that's way more important in the long run than following, like you mentioned, Pam, like the famous or people that get trending. And then write articles about it too. Because I mean, if that is their thing, just let them do their thing. But that's pretty funny though. I feel bad for getting trendy with one material. I was still... What is like an example for this? Like I've definitely had moments where I've thought about doing something like that myself, right? Where I think it was also materials that I was like, oh my god, look at all these people that are doing this kind of style. And then I kind of felt that I needed to ride this wave and kind of make the most use of it, right? Just because it was getting so much attention. But then if you're just doing stuff that you don't like, then it doesn't make sense to me. I get extremely jealous as a first reaction. This is from Cairo, by the way. And then tell myself to get over it. Yep, I have the same feeling, and I'm still getting that occasionally, where I'm just like looking at a piece and I'm like, damn, this is so good. I get that initial spark of like jealousy, and then I turn that into like the objective part of my brain, where I try to break it down and then think about why I think it is good and what makes it so good, and then see if I can get like snippets out of that to apply that in my own work. Just don't go on ArtStation. I don't see ArtStation as depressing, actually. I see it as like a fuel source, but I think people abuse it, right? People just go on it daily and they look at it daily, and that's where it becomes just this, what is it, like this burden that you bring onto your shoulders. Like, don't go on it daily. Don't do it. You have to realize that if you're doing this daily, let's say you go on ArtStation, you get this feeling that, oh my god, I'm never gonna get somewhere. You have to take a step back, realize that that platform is making you feel this way, and that you need to disconnect from it. And this applies across all different aspects, right? It's social media, it's ArtStation, it's Discord, it's the PC in general. Like, you have to realize if something or someone is making you feel bad or is not really pushing you in the way that you want to go, just disconnect from it. Doesn't mean that don't go on ArtStation ever again, but just realize that is having a different impact on you. Because it can be depressing. But that's only, in my opinion, because you let it be. Because, man, this is like a bigger conversation, right? I think a lot of people are looking at it from the angle where they need to fix stuff, where I come in from an angle where I can fix stuff. Like, I put the control back into my own hands. Like, I realize that this platform is having a negative impact on me. I disconnect from it. I don't ask the platform to change, or I don't complain about the platform, or I don't do this because it's not going to. Like, it's not going to change. So it's good to get that control back and make that conscious decision of not letting it impact you in this bad way. I do scroll down to see if they use quixel at all, because especially for Polish, I sometimes don't want to believe they did it themselves. Yeah, some people are really good with that stuff. Some people are just really good. I mean, just if you look at how I've been telling this to like a couple of people, like over the past couple of days, Quixel released like a new video series about a medieval town that they made. It looks so good. That was one of the moments where I got extremely jealous. And then I got extremely jealous and was like, fuck, I need to make something like this, right? I got this massive drive of, well, first that initial jealousy that we talked about, and then this massive drive of like, come on, I need to get my head down. I'm gonna do it. And the last 2 days I spent like a ton of time on my personal project, like really trying to push it. And that's also because they were so intimidatingly good. You just have to turn that energy into like positive energy. Even if you use megascans though, it doesn't mean that the project will look good. I see a fair few megascans environment that don't look great. Yep, exactly. It's just another tools. It still shows composition skills and fundamentals of environment creation. Exactly. And this is also a thing that I bring up, right? Let's say you have a portfolio with only environments created with megascans. You have to be really conscious about what you're showing off. You're showing off that you can set dress a scene with pre-existing assets. Not to say that this is a bad skill, but you're not showing off that you can create them yourself. So you need to be really conscious about that, right? Because you're making your own bed. So if you want to be an environment artist in the games industry, that's not something that you want to show off unless you really want to be like a level artist. But even level artists get in touch with models. They might have to do some adjustments here and there. And if you don't show off that skill, it's going to be less appealing for a potential hiring manager to look at your portfolio. Because you're so limited, you're so focused on creating stuff with megascans that it's only showing off like your compositional skills, like Jacob said. Let's see, Ryan. I feel it's drawing / coloring versus getting praised for finishing a picture in a coloring book. It can be pretty, but one takes so much more effort and knowledge. Yeah, exactly. And Y3 comes into it with, I mean, if people want to use megascans, then they should. It's just another resource. Yep, exactly. It goes into like the topic that I just brought up, right? You need to be conscious about what you show off with that, because at the end of the day, it is a valid resource. It's a really good resource, and it will really speed up the way that you can create your environments. So it's just another tool in your belt. And say you've done foliage, but you're not the best at it. You don't want to be spending time on foliage, or you just want stuff in the background or something, right? Why wouldn't you go for megascans? You don't have to worry about creating something that looks off yourself. You can just get it done quickly. You're not spending like weeks and weeks on creating like a perfect tree that looks good when you can just, I mean, or like tree or foliage or whatever that you can just grab from megascans. I get sidetracked when I go on ArtStation. That's how I start a new project every week. New project every week? Oh man. That can also have its benefits though. Lots of learning, lots of small experimentations. Can really broaden your skill set too. It's also super depressing when you go and see some insane artist that's only a junior. That's why I avoid it. I check it out for inspiration every once in a while, but I try to avoid it. Yeah. I mean, to their credit, right? Like, those juniors are fucking killer, man. Some of them, right? Like, if you see a junior that's just like, oh my god, where's this coming from? It's... yeah, it's tough at first, but I think you just gotta be proud of them. In a weird way, right? Like, you gotta be proud of them that they made it this far, that they really focused on this one thing and they made the best thing out of it. Because, you know what? In the end of the day, you might start working with them in like a couple of years. They might become your coworker. And then, instead of having that resentment against them, right? You have this like, oh my god, I want to learn from you. And just reach out to them, and then you can start learning from them, and they can reveal all the tricks and tips, and then that makes you better as well. Because it's not about competition, it's about collaboration, right? How much of the workflow... oh wait, Cairo mentioned something. There's always going to be someone better than you. Might as well get used to that feeling. Yeah, Like even the people that we think about that are the best of the best, they still have people that they look up to. It's an endless cycle. There's no end to that. It's something so subjective too, right? It's like money. Like you can have, like if you really focus on that, like it's an endless cycle because you always want more and more. And there's a time and space for you just being really appreciative of like your own skills and your own timeline and your own creations. Quixel love from Derek. Yeah, exactly. Oh, man, that medieval environment looked so good. Got the creative juices pumping, man. I love it. How much of the workflow do you think photogrammetry will take over in the future? It could be like when 2D animations turn into 3D. A lot of artists wouldn't accept it, but the people who took it on did really well. I mean, this is an argument that's going on for a while, right? It's not as ground-shattering as the 2D animation going to 3D, I think. Because we're seeing a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now is not as groundbreaking, right? I mean, using photogrammetry and like the whole workflow behind it is pretty fucking nuts. But it's a, currently at least, it's a niche style. Like it's a specific style that you're going for. Whereas if you're looking at, well, it could apply to 2D to 3D animation too. You don't see that in like realistic animation. But yeah, anyway, I think it's always gonna be like a niche or like a specifically for like realistic things. How much of the workflow do you think photogrammetry will take over? Yeah, I think most of it is just going to be like realistic examples. It's not going to be like a ground-shattering like shift in like the workflows for like the 3D environment art space or games, for example. It's going to be, I mean, it already is, where if you look at the convergence of games and movies that's happening right now, where Unreal Engine is moving towards being the convergence point between movies and games, right? That's where photogrammetry is going to play like a really big role if you really want to push that realistic aspect of it. And it's already doing so. Like if you look at some of the cinematics that Quixel pushed out, if you look at some of the stuff that they're pushing out now, with again like the medieval space could be a game space, but it could also be used for a game space too. Like it's really crazy if you think about it that way. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but I don't think it's gonna be a big part of the future if you're looking at realistic examples, right? But yeah, it's not gonna be ground shattering. I'm curious how this is gonna link into neural networks, AI learning, machine learning, all that stuff. Because say right now what we're seeing is we're seeing AI that is learning from pictures that we feed it, right? What if the same thing happens with photogrammetry? Say you have like a bunch of stumps for like a really niche example, right? Say you have like a bunch of stumps, you feed it to like a neural network that learns how stumps look and gets like the shapes right and the textures right, and then you kind of use like a procedural or like a seed-based what is it, like content generation program, like Houdini, for example, could be one of them, where you just spit out like tons and tons of variations of like stumps, and then you pick the best of them, and then you have like a whole collection of stumps. And then if you expand that thinking to modular pieces for like environment art, if you expand that to skyscrapers, if you want to build a city, right? There's a bunch of stuff that could be interesting to like automated content generation in the future. And I think that's gonna be like a way bigger part of the future, where we see those more procedural tools, more AI generative things coming together in combination with scan data or photogrammetry in this case. Because there's already like computer algorithms that are currently what was it from? It's been a while since I saw it, but they're using programs to generate like the optimal chairs, or chairs based on like a certain look, and then they let it generate like a 3D model that they can then use for printing. This is like a printing application, right? This is like a real world application, but there's no reason why that couldn't be used in like a game engine. So, I mean, the future's gonna be fucking crazy with this stuff coming in. And there's always gonna be a space for artists. Because, I mean, that's like the next section of the equation, right? It's like, oh my god, if this is gonna come in, then artists have no jobs anymore. Nah, there's always gonna be a space for us. Because we were also talking about these sort of AIs that generate spaces. I know that I'm going on like a massive tangent at the moment, but we were talking about, oh damn, I forgot the name. Like an AI that generates like spaces, and like the example was, it was purely doing set dressing, right? So you could kind of feed it like, oh, I wanna make this look like an 80s bedroom. Promethean AI was it? That was the name of it. And then it will like clutter the space, and it was like generating a space from assets that you feed it, right? So then this is building on like the previous example. If you have an algorithm that generates models, and then feed that into an AI that generates like spaces, you could quickly have like large part of the pipeline done. And then you can take your time creating like a specific scenario, like a specific story in that scene. Yeah, anyway, it's like a massive tangent, but that stuff is gonna be interesting. I really like using scan data to supplement material creation, for example, so I don't think you need to choose either photogrammetry or traditional creation from Rev. Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. I do that too, looking at some of the maps that they get out of photogrammetry to base my roughness maps on, for example. That's something that I do as well. I was King's Arthur's army too tired to fight, had too many sleepless nights. Oh my god, Fan Fisher. All right. Yeah, this was a really interesting conversation though. I mean, we fucking massively deviated from the question that was originally asked by Pam. But yeah. Yeah, thanks, Fan Fisher. Have a good night or day or whatever. So yeah, I think we kind of answered that question, right? I mean, if that's what they're getting famous for, that's what they're known for. They make the bed that they lie in, right? So what do you all think about this like example that Pam brought up? where people get trending or like famous for writing articles built with like megascans and quixel assets. Hydrate. Wait, I have my glass of water here. Yes, waste all them points. Do it. I feel like we should name this like cheer hydrate or something, because it feels like everyone's just cheering with like with like these points. All right, are there any more questions from any of you? Highlight. Every 100 points is 100 milliliters. Oh shit. Nice plants. Oh, Pam. I feel like anyone can use megascans. That's not true though. Because like who was it that brought up that before? I think it was it Jacob? I'm not sure. Anyone can use them, but you still need to make them look good. Right? It's like people becoming famous on the art community by building environments on Planet Zoo and writing articles about that. Oh, you mean like YouTubers that literally get famous just because they build stuff in Planet Zoo? I mean, they're content creators, right? We literally built that game to facilitate that kind of stuff. And that's what megascans is doing too. I get where you're coming from, right? But that's the thing. It's just like another content generation tool. Like if they really want to become famous for doing that, or like known for doing that, then that's something that they'll have to live with. I think it just comes to down to your goal in the industry. You can use megascans, but you're not going to get an environment art job doing it. Yep, exactly. I'm off to make some more plants. Yeah, thanks so much, Cairo. Have fun making those plants. And like Ryan said, they're looking awesome so far. Hell yeah, that's what I love to see. Supporting community. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm not against it, but it's not fair as you said before. I mean, yeah, it is fair. It's just like a different discipline. I think, yeah, I mean, it is totally fair. Like there's no other way around it. Like people, they're literally creating like something from scratch, but it's using a different tool that we're used to. And if they don't want to get into the industry as an environment artist, then that's what they've chosen to do, right? Because it's still building up their composition, like the way that they think about that. And it's not, might sound a bit harsh to just deny them that job of environment artist, right? Because there's still space for that in the environment artist jobs too. So say if you want to work at Quixel, that is like the people that they look for. And then they're still an environment artist, but their job description is just a little bit different to what we're traditionally used to. It costs time to write articles. It's fine if they want to spend that time. Might as well make more art. Yep, that's how I feel about it too. I mean, how I feel about it is a big way, but it is a good point. Because they do take a lot of time, those articles. And they do give you something as return, right? Ideally, that should be payment first, because I mean that's one of my gripes too. With I don't know. It's kind of weird if we go into that direction, right? No. Yeah, exactly. I was going to that direction too. Spending a lot of time on social media. And then getting the reward from people seeing it, right? And then like marketing yourself too. Like it's a part of creating art too. I think what I really like about that is that there's people out there that are like challenging the way that we're used to think about stuff. Like if you just look about that, and then you have people that want to create like megascan environments, and that's where they find their creative passion, and then they get seen for that stuff, or get like attention for that stuff. I think that's pretty interesting. I think from like a broader perspective, it makes you think about the possibilities of what you can do with your art too. It doesn't have to be this box that you're thinking in. It can be something completely different. Because those people, like ideally all people, they just make their own rules. And they just find the thing that they want to belong in. And for sure, it is a motivational boost to keep pushing your own art. And then getting recognized for it too, right? But then that brings its own issues with it. Well, quote unquote issues. Like if you get known for doing something, people are always going to expect you to do more of that stuff. So once you get really quote unquote famous for that, it's really hard to switch. Because you kind of, like I said before, you build your own bed, or like you build your own cage, right? Whereas, let's say, for a ridiculous example, right? I switched to character art, and like character art is the only thing that I do. Like people are gonna be like, what the fuck is he doing? That's not gonna work. And that's also where it comes down to like our earlier conversation, right? You have to be really careful about that you start out doing something that you love and not pursuing something that just gets traction. Yeah, exactly. You would be heartbroken if I would switch to character art. It is a really interesting topic though. But I think it doesn't matter. Like especially this, like if they get famous for that, just let them do their thing. Why? This is a question, Pam. Like why do you think it's not fair? Because they use other people's content. Well, content in like a broad stroke, but because they're paying for it, right? They're paying to get access to Quixel. So they're kind of paying for that tool. Do you know any artists that do environment and character art that are good in both? There are definitely people that are really good in like multiple things. But if they're in the industry, like they usually, if they're in like the bigger studios, they have to pick one over the other. But I do know some people that are like really good in like a bunch of stuff though. I think it's good to be a little bit generalistic. But there's always going to be one thing that's going to stand out. Because we had a person with art in school, Tom Dalbo. He's working at Gorilla at the moment, or I think he is. That's the last time I checked up on him. It's been a while since we talked, but he was one of those people that he could program, he could make characters, he could make cars, he could do anything, like really. Because like, even if we talk about character and environment art, there are similarities to it, right? Because characters, the way that I see characters, are basically like mini environments. They need to tell a story. Like it can't just be, unless it's like an NPC that no one cares about. Just like someone that walks across the street. Like you usually wanna tell a story with them too, right? Like the workflows to get there are probably gonna be different, right? The programs that you're gonna use to get to an end result. But yeah, where was I going with that? Got distracted. Yeah, anyway, doesn't matter. I Sanchez, one of the guys who can do it all. Environmental artist by trade. Yeah, there's definitely people that can do stuff like that. It's always good to have a knowledge. Like, I was kind of hinting at like the base understanding, right? You're still gonna think about like how to tell a story, how to compose something. Like composition matters on characters too. You don't want to just overload them with like stuff, because then you're detracting from like the whole thing. So there's like art fundamentals that are gonna be still relevant. Because it is fast and easy, and anyone who has no skill can use it. I think you're underestimating that, because you still need to light it. You still need to implement it. You still need to set up like a bunch of stuff to have it blending correctly with other assets. I feel it's not professional. Like I said before, Planet Zoo content creators has their own target, which is people who play that game. Meanwhile, in here we are judged for our fundamental knowledge and 3D skill. And megascans just eliminate the 3D skill completely. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Like there's definitely 3D skill that you need to have. Like maybe modeling, right? If they only use megascans and they don't have to model. What? Have a look. With the plugin, it's also put the materials on. Of course, there are people who use megascans to mix material, which is fine. As well as if you use the materials on your own assets, but not having any input for yourself, will just like being a level artist. But level artist is like a big part of the industry. And it's only going to become bigger. As the worlds get bigger, the content in the world is going to get more massive. We can render more stuff on the screen. Content creation is going to be easier and easier in the future, where we have procedural tools coming in, automatic generation of simple assets. So I think there's going to be a real need for those people that only focus on like set dressing and like putting stuff together in the future. People who only use Quixel will not compete with you in your job applications though. Because if they don't demonstrate any modeling skills, they're not going to get hired anyway. Yeah, or they're going to get hired for like a different discipline, right? They're not going to get hired for like an environment artist position. If we're talking about environment artist, prop artists, right? Where they have to have some modeling too. I think it just sucks that it has that to the layman, they don't realize how easy it is to do compared to what environment artists to do to get less recognition. Yeah, that's true. But then are we angling for recognition? What really matters there? Because that's what this kind of boils down to, right? It's sort of like a concept artist making a finished piece and then a scribble on Twitter getting like 20,000 likes. We're kind of making the same comparison here. Which is fine. I mean, that's just a part of what people want to see online too. They just, especially when it comes to these quixel environments, like most of them, if done well, right? Because it does take skill to light them and compose them in a aesthetically pleasing way, and then you see it pop up on an article, that is going to pull your attention. And even though we know what all went behind it, like the people that will click on that thing, most likely, if we're talking about the 3D environment space, most likely that will be students that will be looking for learning potential, right? Like learning opportunities, and just like seeing how they built this. It doesn't matter. Like they don't really know yet what's going into it or not. Like I get it. If you want to be a level or lighting artist, it's okay. But if you sell it as an environment, I mean, it is an environment, right? It's just built differently. Where would you draw the line then? Photo sourcing as well is a useful tool, just like 90% of the people using scanned grunge maps. Yeah, exactly. Wait, let's have a look here, right? Because Pam, you mentioned that it still requires time and effort. Take the photo, edit, and all kinds of things. But that's the same with photo scanning too. Like the people that originally create the photo scan content, they still have to take like thousands of pictures, scan it, extract all the data, recompose it. So would it not be allowed to buy, for example, alpha packs and then use them because you don't do them yourself? Look, I emphasize here, right? I really emphasize here because I'm one of those people that just wants to do everything myself. But you just have to realize that there are people that don't want to do that. People who do the scan still put skill and effort into it. Yup. It's not the same because you are using that noise for something bigger with a lot of modification. But then where... So you mentioned that they do a lot of modification to the original asset. But then lighting it and propping it is also modifying the content because you use it in a different context. So they're not 100% adapting like the source material that they get into it, but they still adapt it in a way where it makes sense in a bigger part of the scene. It's nice to see how people utilize these tools and not 100% copy paste. Yeah, well that's also like a different, like a big factor that comes into it, right? Like say you have the Icelandic environment from Quixel. A lot of people are going to recognize that too, and they're going to be like, oh, this is made with Quixel, and it will start to diminish the perceived value of just people using that. A good example for this is Dido. Like in its early days, like that was using scanned data, right? But you could tell if people use Dido by just looking at the wood had like a specific normal in it, where you could really just pick it out as like, oh, this is Dido. And then we were kind of trying to find a way how you could get rid of that, right? You want to hide the fact that it's been built by megascans, so it becomes like more of a tricky thing. And then we started to adjust like the source files that we got from it. My original question is for people who use megascans exclusively. As I said before, if you use it for foliage, because it is difficult. You are making your own. Let's have a look, Pam. Because you are using their work to sell your own, which makes things even worse. But then it gets really muddy, right? Because we use Unreal Engine. And that is also a tool. So should we then start from scratch and make everything ourselves? Like if we look at megascans as a tool, there's always people that are going to have like an over-reliance on the tool, where you can really tell that it's been built by something that's almost pre-existent. Like, I think a good example for this could be that there's probably like a bunch of games that use the shooter template that you have in Unreal Engine, and they just dress it up like slightly different, but you can still tell. It's an interesting topic, though. Yeah, it is, right? It is an interesting topic. So let's have a look here, right? Somewhere in the middle. I don't know anymore. No, I think, to recap, right? I think we just get too caught up with this amount of stuff, like this amount of creative adaptation that we have to do for it to be our own creation, or still someone else's creation. But then if we shift that conversation to where it becomes like, okay, let's put a line in there, right? Like Derek was trying to do. Like, where do you make the distinction between the two? You can't really do that, because if you use only megascans and you put them in a scene that you build yourself, right? So say you use like 20% megascans in your scene. Just to take a step back, right? I know that you were talking about like only using megascans in your scenes to fully create the scene, but then you're technically using megascans for the same thing. You're still using it to build your scene. But because you're only using them for 20%, then that makes that all right? What if we go to 50%? Is that still okay? What if we go to 80%? Is that still okay? Like where's the distinguishing line between it? And if we're talking about that stuff, I think it's kind of like I said before, right? It's a tool that people will use, and if they over rely on that tool, it's gonna stand out as the tool itself, unless you do so much work on it to adapt like the source material that you can create with it. For example, if you compose a scene with megascans assets in a way that it's so complicated, so intricate that it doesn't look like megascans assets anymore, aren't we then also kind of doing that with Substance Designer, for example, where those artists take a lot of time to, most of the time, get rid of what it makes, or what it makes it feel like a Substance Designer asset? You spend a lot of time creating like subtle details, like subtle layers on top of it, and adjusting the source material that you can get from it to create something truly unique. You can do the same thing with megascans too. It's just in terms of set dressing instead of the actual content creation. Yep. It's a remix culture decision. Exactly. So I've been reading this short book, right? Like Steal Like an Artist. I have it here on my desk. Whoa. Oh, I got the camera flipped. So you can't... It's like liesse. But it mentions kind of the same thing, right? Like if you only use like one thing from it, like you're stealing, but if you fuse it with other stuff, then you're creating your new thing. And I think the same thing is happening within Megascan. So if we go back to your example, Pam, if you were to recreate, oh wait, let's go into your question. Like using assets on a creative way, or using them for other things that they aren't purpose for? No, using them in a creative way. I mean, both things apply, right? Like if you're creating an assets out, like if you're creating a chair out of bricks, then you're really taking it from like the original purpose of it, right? But you can do the same thing where you use, let's think about the other side of it, where you just create like a completely new scene with the assets that are offered. So creating like an alien landscape, for example, with the stuff that is created by Quixel. Yeah, exactly. It's just what you do with those nodes. Exactly. And that's the same. If we take a step back, the same applies here, right? But it's just a different topic that we're talking about. Like if you use them in a creative way, and if you use them in like a unique way, then yeah. Yeah, I saw them because we're getting closer to now we're actually seeing the convergence between Pam's thinking and what we're sort of saying here, right? Because it's what you do with those nodes is kind of what Pam was saying in the beginning. Like what if they how would this compare? What if they recreate like a scene that's already been done with megascans? Because then they're not creating something new. They're just using like a different tool for it. I mean, it's an interesting topic though, because it does make me think about where the line is. Interesting. Clouds 2 all day, every day. No, I don't think it is though, Pam. That's why I brought up the example of what was I even saying? That's why I brought up the example of it depends on what you do with it, right? The reason why I can keep going back to it is if you're using the Perlin node, for example, in this case, right? You're just presenting it as is. You're not doing any adjustments. But with megascans, what we're doing is we use the assets, but we then adjust them to fit and make like new environments. So you are doing adjustments, but you're not doing it on the mesh level. So, because then if we zoom back to the Perlin node, what you're doing with substance materials is you use a Perlin node, you use like clouds 2, you start combining them. That's what you're doing with megascans assets too. You're using some of these rocks, you're using these terrain textures, and you're combining them together. It's just, yeah, how should I explain this? Because we're kind of doing the same thing, but it's on different aspects of like different topics. Whereas if we do that with Substance Painter or like Substance Designer, then we're doing it on, what is it, like on the content level instead of on the, oh my god, level to make it really confusing, like on the environment level. It is a really interesting topic though. But yeah, there are like slight hints from like, I think Derek mentioned that before, where the first signs of like photo bashing came up, everyone was like, oh no, photo bashing, that's fucking cheating. It's like, no, it's not. It depends on what you do with it. Like if you only use photos, it's just gonna look like a collection of photos that are just slapped onto each other. But if you then add stuff onto it, and I think we're going through like the initial stages of that, where the tools are springing up, and because we're talking about the article aspect of it too, right? Wait, let's have a look. Leon, with megascans you get a lot of tools, but the end product is still your own composition and artistic vision. You can think of it as lesser because it's not 100% custom created by the artist, but this is just, yeah, comes down to subjective taste. Exactly. Others will disagree with that sentiment, so only half agree as we see it right now. There's no truth to be found here. Yeah, just a big it depends. Yep, exactly. There's no right or wrong. It's just fantastic if you create something from scratch. It's great if you can utilize resources from your shortcomings and also great to use resources to just avoid doing things you don't like doing. Why make photos if you don't like doing it? Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's a sentiment that I agree with, for sure. For sure. I guess so. Just like the defeat. Well, that's the thing, right? There's no... Like, the two persons brought up. You haven't seen that as a tool. But then, you do know that people use it as a foliage piece, right? So, those people are kind of using it as a tool. Yeah, exactly. That's what my long-winded explanation was trying to say, right? You kind of have to see it as like another tool in your belt. I mean, if you compare it to a tool, right? There's always going to be people that will try to do everything with a hammer, and they're not going to get the best result. I mean, you're not going to screw something in with like a hammer. It's not going to work like that. Yeah, this was an interesting discussion though. So thank you so much for bringing it up, Pam. It was really interesting. But I think... I mean, there's no but. I think a lot of it also has to do with just the jealousy part that we talked about in the beginning. Where you just have to take a step back and just be like, okay, whatever. Like if they want to get known for that, that's their thing. If you hit the screw from the right angle, though. All right, Leon. Thanks so much, man. Yeah, Ryan, you have the permission to go to sleep now. And you know what, people? I'm gonna do some more personal work. This was a really good conversation, though. I really loved this. Some good insight, some good conversational topics. This was some good stuff. So thanks everyone for joining. And as most of you know already here, right? Like if you're interested in joining the community, having more of these discussions, then feel free to join us on beyondextent.com and you can get access to our community channel and all that good stuff. It also has like a bunch of resources for environment artists. So feel free to check it out. And then for everyone, have a great Sunday. See ya.